in situations like this, you have the radiator that's right there behind the bumper, and after an impact to the front of the vehicle like that, we don't know if maybe it could be overheating or some other thing could happen to this car that could put it at its end. We're going to show you some footage from that accident earlier as this vehicle was going at high rates of speed northbound Azusa. And did collide with that vehicle going through the intersection, then going into the neighborhood or into the parking lot and kind of spinning out of control without the use of its front tires. But as we continue eastbound, the California Highway Patrol has been handing off to its other agencies, trading out units as they see fit. Air unit from the Sheriff's Department is overhead calling the pursuit for those officers on the ground so that they can focus on specifically that driving in a safe manner, keeping the public safe, because that is the main priority of our officers, is to keep the general public safe. And if that means backing off a little bit, giving the suspect some space so that he or she may slow down. We have seen a drastic change in speed from earlier when we first got over this pursuit at 100 plus miles an hour, now into the 60 mile an hour range, hugging that number 4 lane. And we continue to slow down. So maybe we're starting to see, Mike and Cher, a problem with that vehicle starting to rear its head, and maybe we are the engine is giving out. We're unsure, but now we're down into the 40 mile an hour range, and this is the slowest we've seen this pursuit since it started. Right. Getting off here at White Avenue from the 10 freeway, we'll have to see what happens when we get down into the off the freeway. Earlier, when we first heard the pursuit, the vehicle was racing around in some neighborhoods and lost the ground units for some time, but that air unit staying overhead. Now we are turning left onto what looks like White Avenue, and it possibly slowing down to a stop. We'll see here. My pilot, David Viskovich, doing a great job at maneuvering us around all the different obstacles that comes from the air here, like trees. And we are stopped here. We're going to hold a little bit of wider shot, Mike and Cher, just because in situations where we have a termination or end of a pursuit like this, we never know what may happen. But you can see the Highway Patrol there are out. They are taking their positions of concealment, and they do have their guns drawn. What they're going to be doing at this point is making call-outs to that driver, and if there are any passengers in that vehicle, asking them to step out with their hands up, throw those keys out of the vehicle, and then comply with the order of the officers, so that they can be taken into custody in a very safe manner. The last thing we want to do is a suspect running out or charging the officers or anything of that nature. But you can see just how the vehicle is starting to smoke now. And now the time is on the officer's side. The pursuit has come to an end, or at least we hope so. They will start blocking off the streets in the area to prevent any traffic from coming up this street, possibly getting involved in this pursuit. But the good thing about this time of night is that there aren't a lot of people on the roadways, so the officers have the time and the means to be patient with the suspect and get him out of the vehicle and safely take them into custody. We are off White Avenue here in Pomona, just off the 10 freeway, and we will continue to follow this termination of this high-speed pursuit, Mike and Cher.
Right, that's what we're hoping, is that this has come to an end. He got into a pretty nasty crash at the beginning of this pursuit when we got on it, and it's really quite surprising that he was able to hit upwards of 120 miles per hour on the freeway after that accident that you're going to see on your screen right there. It is, but he was able to manage to get onto that freeway, making it through the freeway at high speeds. I think I clocked at 128 at one point. And, you know, at one point or another, you would think that this was going to, the car was going to give up. And here, possibly that's what's happened. It's just a matter of time now for that suspect to get out and heed the orders of the police officers. A host of charges from speeding, you know, street racing, evading police. It's going to be a long night in jail for this guy.
You know, for the position of that car, it appears as though it quit on him. I mean, he had no intention of giving up, going 120 miles an hour on the freeway as this car limped along, and eventually decided that it was no longer going to run. And it had been smoking quite a bit from the time we saw that collision That was right at Azusa and the 60 freeway near the Puente Hills Mall where the collision happened. He went in and out of the mall parking lot and directly onto the 60 eastbound, and the chase was on. Somewhat of a miracle that this car managed to get as far as it did, all the way to the Pomona Valley. But again, appears as though it kind of quit. I mean, had he been yielding, he would have pulled over to the side of the road, you would think, and not stop in the middle of it as though he has. But then again, we'll see how long this takes. Sometimes they get right out of the car, and sometimes these things go on for an extended period of time. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Colton overhead. This initially, as we said, started out as a street racing suspect, and they tried to pull him over, but that wasn't the case. They were watching him. It was a pursuit. They backed off. It was just too dangerous. The speeds on the surface streets were just too high, and so they had an airship following this guy. But when we came on, that's when the pursuit started up again with the CHP. That's who we're looking at right now. CHP waiting for this guy to obey those orders, get out of that car, and get into custody. Hopefully, waiting for a peaceful end, and that there's nobody else in that car.
As far as we know, the suspect behind the wheel is the lone occupant until we hear otherwise. But a question as to what this driver wants to do here. If he was yielding intentionally, you'd think he would have given up by now. But has something else on his mind. The car decided to quit on him, and that's what we're going with until we see evidence otherwise. But this driver refusing to get out of the car. Obviously, officers are on the loudspeakers giving commands for him to show his hands, throw the keys out the window, all the usual things that we see at the end of a pursuit. None of that has happened to this point. The driver, as far as we can tell, is just sitting behind the wheel. Now we see movement. Colton, go ahead.
We just saw the windows come down, those doors opening, that driver now stepping out of the vehicle, hands
female
above
driver.
Their heads. It looks like we do have a possible female driver here. What they're going to do now is take this situation very slowly, like we were talking about, Mike and Cher, and have that driver step away from the vehicle, and they could do one of two things. Have that driver kneel down and lay on the ground, or just back their way up to those officers and be apprehended. They're having the driver lift their jacket right now just to make sure that they don't see any weapons on that suspect. But with this pursuit, the police and California Highway Patrol have done what they're supposed to and kept the public safe, whether that meant backing off of the pursuit to get the suspect to slow down, re-engaging when that suspect wasn't slowing down and did collide with that vehicle we saw earlier, and now being patient with the termination of this pursuit, asking that driver to back to those arresting officers. They're going to have them go down on the ground, hands above the head, and then that arresting officer will come up and arrest that suspect. They're going to take their time with this, though. Again, they make sure that the suspect doesn't have any weapons or anything to worry about. But you can see there that the driver now being taken into custody. We haven't heard any information on whether there are any passengers. The airship overhead is going to be doing their best to look inside the window.